Thanks for joining us on Station 14 for this feature interview at the Tett Centre for Creativity and Learning. You can find out more about the facilities and the programming at the Tett by visiting tettcentre.org. Today joining us is Mike Laughlin, a local firefighter. He's been in the business of saving lives for over 15 years, but Mike, you've been on the other side twice.
Yeah.
On the other side, staring death right in the face.
Absolutely, yes.
And we will get that in just a moment, but more recently, you just got back from Africa. Mike, what were you doing there?
So I just got back from my second trip to Africa. 5 years ago I was in Africa, and I helped build a school. And this time we went over and I was with a foundation called Kenya Help. Nancy Stevens is her name, from Kingston here, and she runs Kenya Help. And yeah, we built a women's empowerment center in the last year. So we went over there and built a wall around the empowerment center. And yeah, it's quite an experience going to a third world country like that. And it's something I'll never forget. And I plan on going back again.
You're going to go back?
For sure, yeah.
You went there with, where you're a prosthetic. It's titanium. This is not an easy thing to go to Africa and build a wall and sort of give back when you're still getting used to a prosthetic like this. Can you explain what this is? How does this work?
So this is actually a very high-tech prosthetic. It's worth a lot of money. So like you said, it was,
Can you tell us how much?
Well, it's worth about $120,000. And to take it over to Africa, it was a little bit scary. I wasn't sure if I was going to run into someone that wanted the leg more than me. But everything worked out fine. I kept it covered, and we were well taken care of over there. But the leg itself it's got a computer in it. So it remembers my gait, which is my step, and it helps remember each step, and therefore it helps me walk. So.
Obviously, you haven't been walking with this leg for your entire life. Mike, where did that story start?
So actually, I just lost my leg about 10 months ago, June 6th of 2016, in a motorcycle accident. And
that wasn't the first accident that you've had that really should have taken your life, but you survived anyway. Where did that all start?
No, so in 2007, I was out snowmobiling with some friends, and it was late at night, so it was dark. It was snowing, and snowing pretty hard. We couldn't see, 10 feet in front of you. And we're going across a lake. So we're driving across the lake, and I lost sight of where they were. So I was trying to catch up with them, and so I pinned it and went very fast, being young and stupid. And I got off the path about 10, 20 feet, and I caught the end of an island. And so I hit a rock cut, basically, at about 100 miles an hour. And there's no way I should have survived, but I hit the rock, flew 200 feet into the island, threading the needle through a whole bunch of trees. And, I remember right before I hit the island, I remember seeing the island and saying, holy shit, and I'm gonna die. And then the next thing I know, I woke up. And when I say I woke up, I think it just happened so quick that it felt like I was waking up. And I went, oh my God, I'm alive. And so I looked down, and my legs snapped off behind me, and my arms snapped off, and basically I was broken.
You're broken?
Broken.
What does that mean?
So, I hit so hard that, my femur was crushed, my kneecap was off, my tibia fibula were broken, my forearm was snapped off, and I wasn't sure what else was going on at the time. I could have had internal injuries. Anyways, so being a firefighter, I knew, I had to get help, and so there was no one around. It was snowing very hard. It was cold. I knew I might not have that much time, so I was going to crawl to this cottage that was on the island, and I was going to light the cottage on fire, and the fire department would come and find me. That was my plan.
Nobody would have been home at this time of year, right?
No, it was out in the middle of the lake, right? So it was just a cottage, just a one-season cottage in the summer. So anyways, I was crawling, so I dragged myself inch by inch, and when I was crawling, twice I actually laid down and gave up and decided I was going to die. And I just laid back and said, it's time.
How did you feel in that? To make that decision, how do you feel in that moment?
Well, it's not in me. And so when I did it, immediately my mind kicked in, screw that, I am not going to die. I'm going to fight this to the end until I can't move. So then I started crawling again. So I ended up doing that twice, where I actually, laid down and said, okay, I'm done. And then, I'd think about my family or think about friends and say, you know what, no, I got to keep going. So I kept going after the second one, and then all of a sudden I heard a snowmobile coming back. So one of the guys that I was with that was ahead of me realized I wasn't with them and came back, and he found me and he dragged me up on the back of the snowmobile. And
What did you feel? Were you happy? Were you relieved?
I was
Did you
relieved
understand
I
what
was
happening?
found, but I knew I wasn't out of the woods yet because, there was a long way to go. I still had to get to the hospital, and I still had to know what was going on with me. So they, luckily, he got me into shore and got me in a car, and they drove me to the hospital. And, the next thing I know, I'm hooked up to all these tubes and wires, and I'm going into surgery, and ended up, long story short, with that accident was, I spent a month in the hospital, and then I spent, the next 3 or 4 months learning how to walk all over again, basically from, my first steps again. And,
From scratch.
Yep. And I did it, and my driving force was I'm a firefighter, and I love my job so much that all I could think about was getting back on those fire trucks, and I worked my ass off until I got back. And so 2007, I beat that one. I was back to normal again.
Oh, you kind of described how you started to feel like you got your life back and things were going well. You even started, you were playing hockey again.
Yep.
But you didn't realize
Doing everything I used to do.
Everything.
You wouldn't even know I was in an accident, except for the massive scars on my leg.
Sure. Probably a good story, I would imagine.
And the
at that
titanium
point, right?
filling the left side of my body, yeah.
But something was coming around the corner that you weren't expecting.
Yeah, so like I said, life was good. My girlfriend of 3 years, who we lived together, I came home and found her dead one day, and she had committed suicide. And it was something that caught me completely off guard, which it does, for everyone that happens to. And so once again, my life was turned upside down in a different way, but it's almost the same. Physical pain and mental pain, they're one and the same, right? And possibly, mental pain might be worse because there's nothing you can do, right? It's just you have to deal with it and you have to get over it, and it takes time. And so it took me, a few years and to get past that and to accept her death. And but I bounced back again, and got the help in the right spots, in the right areas. My friends, my family were there for me, and I recovered from the second big incident in my life.
Which it took years. I mean, can you describe? This is something that just devastates people, to come home and to find someone that they love.
So we lived out on Dog Lakes, which it's 25 minutes out of town, and I came home and found her. And I'm being a firefighter once again. I knew she was dead. There was nothing that could be done. There was no CPR bringing her back, and so I had to lay with her emotionless body for about 25 minutes until EMS showed up and the police showed up, and it was just, I can't even describe it, right? It's just another horror story, right? So, but there's many people that do go through it, and you can get through it.
And you said family played a big part in that.
Huge part. Family, and not just my family, but my extended family, the fire department, right? They were there for me every step of the way. So it was amazing. And I'm here today because friends and family helped me through it.
And then just about a year ago in 2016, again, you had recovered emotionally from that tragedy with your girlfriend, and you had recovered from the original, physical accident in 2007, and in 2016 there was something else. So
then I say I've had 3 major incidents in my life, and so this is the third one, and this is the one that left me with this. Is first day of summer. Get my Harley out of the garage, gonna go out for a nice ride, and cruising along on the road on North Shore Road, which is back of Lober Lake, close to where my first incident was, and a deer jumps into the ditch, and you're on a motorcycle, right? So what do? So I swerve as hard as I can. The deer glances off my arm. I get control of the bike again. And by the time I get control and I look up, I'm in the middle of a corner and I'm still doing, 60 kilometers. So I turn as hard as I can. And when I do that, the back wheel catches the shoulder of the road and the bike goes out from under me. So as soon as that happens, I always told myself if I was ever in a bike accident, don't hit your head. You hit your head and the chances of surviving aren't good.
You remembered that while this is happening.
Yeah, I had the time. It's split seconds, but you have time to think about these things. And so I sat up as upright as I could to try to keep my head from hitting. And when I did that, I bounced off the side of the road on my butt. And after I found out, I broke my back and my neck when I bounced off the side of the road. So after I bounced, I'm sliding on my butt through the ditch, and I watch my leg get caught on a rock and get torn right off.
You saw that?
Watched it happen, yeah.
What are you thinking when you see this?
It's like a horror story, right? It's a horror movie. And I didn't really have time to think about it then. The motorcycle bounced off the rock in front of me and landed on top of me, and then it's quiet. And right away I think, oh my God, I just killed myself. And a couple more seconds go by, and then I have time to think, okay, well, here we go again.
Here we go again.
I got to do this again. I got to save myself again. And when they say you get this superhuman strength when the chips are down and you're in trouble, and you hear people lifting cars off of people and stuff. I took an 800-pound Harley with a broken back and neck, and I threw it off me. And the next thing I did was I looked down and I saw my leg, and my leg was, dangling by some skin, and it was broken in every which way possible. It was the goriest thing. I've been on the fire department for 16 years.
Must have
seen
seen
a
everything.
lot of stuff, and the worst thing I've seen was on me. I mean, my tibia and fibula were sticking out. My ankle ball of your ankle was out of the foot, and my foot was backwards. It was just terrible. And so I'm like, what do I do? Okay, and I go right into firefighter mode again, right? So I pull my belt, and it's actually the belt I'm wearing right now, this leather belt.
This one here?
Yeah.
We see it? Yeah.
So it's actually this belt I'm wearing because I wear it for good luck now. But I pulled it out of my jeans, and I tourniquet my leg. And after I did that, I started searching for my phone. So I get my phone out of my pocket, and I'm starting to really shake and seize up by then. But I'm thinking in my mind, if I can just get this phone call out, I might survive.
Did you have any inkling that your neck and your back were broken?
No idea. Because what I could see was my leg, and it was devastated, right? And so you're not thinking about anything else. So it wasn't until I was laying there waiting for EMS to show up when I started feeling some more, my back starting to get a little bit tight and things, but still never thought about it until I was in the hospital. But so I tourniqueted my leg, which doctors say I saved my own life, and got my phone out of my pocket. Thank goodness my phone wasn't broke. Thank goodness I had bars. It had some service.
How would you describe that? Is that good luck? Is that a miracle? How is it that the phone didn't break?
It's good luck. It must be, right? It's a miracle too. How does it not break? I was in a serious bike accident, and I was lucky. So I get the call out to not 911, but I call my fire dispatch, because I know that phoning fire dispatch directly is quicker than 911, and I didn't know how much time I had. So the girl that picked up in dispatch, I called in on the civilian line, so it wasn't a 911 line. So she answers, "Hi, Mike, how are you?" And
Little did she know.
Little did she know, right? And little did she know she'd be on the phone for the next 20 minutes, basically saving my life, keeping me conscious, keeping me alive until EMS showed up. And I found out after that dispatch is in the same building as our chiefs and our training division and fire prevention. And I found out after that they were all in the dispatch room listening to my call. And at that time, when the chief knew I was loaded in the ambulance and on the way to the hospital, he went down to KGH and let them know that one of his guys was coming, and you better get ready and you better take care of him. And that's, that itself, to have a chief that cares about his people that much, Chief Sean Armstrong, and he's unbelievable. Had my back the entire time.
Did you have any idea that you call them the fire family, that they were listening, that they were on the call and they were listening to every
And I didn't
word.
find that out till much later, maybe a couple months ago, that you hear these other little stories. What were you doing when I was laying in the ditch, dying? And these little stories come up, and it really, I got a tear in my eye when I heard that people were listening and they were, worried about me, and they were that, Chief Armstrong drove right down to the hospital and made sure that they were ready for me.
And meanwhile, on the way to the hospital, and then when you arrive, suddenly you're usually the one who is lifting someone and carrying someone and helping someone, and suddenly these hands are now working on you. What's that like?
It's very different. I've packaged a lot of people, and packaged means putting them on a backboard, putting the neck brace on them, and strapping them to the board. Well, I was on the other side this time, and it's a very, very humbling experience. And to know that, I was in good hands, to feel that safe when I was in that ditch, and they were packaging me up. And I had a couple friends that were there. Luckily, Chief Cheeseborough from South Frontenac is a friend of mine, and he heard the call and heard who it was, and he raced to the scene to help me. And also Greg Robertson, who's on the Kingston Fire Department. He's a chief with Kingston. He just happened to be going home that way. He says he never goes home that way, and just the one time of the year he happened to go home, Division Street.
It's a fluke.
It was a fluke, and he heard the call, and he heard it was me, and he said he almost blew up his truck trying to get there so quick to help me, right, to save me. So I knew I was in good hands, but to hear these little stories after about how worried people were about me, it's really touching. So
now I'm going to use your words to describe what it was like. You said at that time, there was no scale to tell you how much pain I was in.
Yeah.
How do you even describe that?
So, my first accident, I remember how much pain I was in, and I didn't think there was anything worse than that, and then I topped it. This one, it was just, there isn't a scale to tell you. When people give you, give me a 1 to 10 what kind of pain you're in. Well, my pain scale is a little bit different than everyone else's now, because it was just unbelievable. So you can be in so much pain without passing out. I don't know how it's possible, but I did it. And
Well, they had to put you in a coma.
They put me in a coma. So once I got to the hospital, they pumped a bunch of painkillers into me, and really it did nothing. It wasn't taking the pain away. And so the doctor finally said, "Listen, Mr. Laughlin, there's not anything else we can do for you. If we give you any more painkillers, we'll kill you. We got to put you in a coma." And I said, I remember I said, do it, put me in a coma. And so they put me in a coma for 8 days. And the 8 days for me actually felt like 30 minutes. They put me in a coma, and you're out like that, and then some crazy stuff goes on in your head. It's hard to explain, but I thought I was dying. I thought this was how you die. Your brain starts shutting down, and then eventually the light goes out. And instead of the light going out, the next thing I knew is this big hose was being pulled out of my throat, and I came to like this, and my mother was in front of me going,
Your mother was there.
"Honey, you're going to be okay. You're alive." And I was like, "I'm alive." I'd already accepted that that's how you die. I was dead, and no, I was alive, and very grateful to be alive. And then
What did you think when you saw your mom?
Oh, I actually felt terrible for my mother, right? Because no one wants to worry their mother. And this is the second time that I've almost died, and my mother's got that phone call, that your son's in the hospital and we don't know how he's going to make out, right? And so I really felt terrible for her. I started saying sorry, right? So, but anyways, my family was so supportive. My sister, my brother, and my dad, they were there the entire time I was in the hospital, And
Well, you had over 2,000 visitors. Didn't the nurses? They had to do something to help guide people to see
yeah,
you.
the nurses had a sign on the nurses' desk that said Mike Laughlin this way, because they were sick of telling people, yeah, he's down in this room. So they just made a little sign that said with a finger pointing, because I had so much support. It was just unbelievable. It was visitor after visitor, and it was overwhelming. And it's very humbling. It's very, it's very touching to know that many people care about me.
And in that hospital visit, I know that what they did was they were able to reattach your leg at first. It did have to be amputated, and then you went to rehab. And you kind of blew people away there too.
Yeah, so at first, I woke up out of a coma and I looked down, totally expecting my leg to be gone, and it was back on. They reattached it. And that, it's amazing what doctors can do, right? But they put that leg that was in pieces in that ditch all back together. So unfortunately, they put it back together and all was well there, but there's arteries and all kinds of other things that need to be reattached, and the leg didn't live. So after 5 days, it died, and they decided, obviously we got to remove it now. So then they amputated it below the knee, and then they realized the knee wasn't savable either. So then they went above the knee. So and then like you said, instead, a lot of people, when they get the news that they're losing a limb, they get depressed and they shut her down and they decide, life's over. And for me, I remember, not me, I remember the day they told me, we're going to amputate your leg. I was about an hour of grieving and what am I going to do? And then I said to my dad, Dad, give me the iPad. And we got the iPad out and we started researching what legs I can get. What's the best leg for firefighting? What's the best leg for skating and playing hockey? So I went, immediately I went to, okay, this is what's going to happen. There's nothing I can do about this now except for, conquer it and live my normal life that I was going to live.
And you went through it fast, right? My understanding is you were with a couple of months.
Yeah, so I broke some records on the, in the healing department. I was out of St. Mary's in 2 weeks, which is, where I went to learn how to walk again and heal up. And I had a prosthetic on within 3 months, which is very quick for, your stump has to heal. Your stump is where they amputate your leg. That's what they call your leg after. It has to heal, and then you have to get fitted, and you have to go through quite a process. It's not like they just give it to you and put it on, right? So it took some time, but I think it took some time, and they're telling me, I'm a year ahead of schedule of a normal person. So.
And now, and you're back on shift. You're back to work.
Yeah. So my biggest driving force, once again, back in 2007 with the accident, my driving force was the fire department, and it was the same this time. I have the best job in the world. I love my job. I'm good at my job. I'm not losing my job. So I worked my butt off to get back, and I'm back on shift now. I'm on modified duty though. But the plan is, within this year, is to be back in the back of the fire trucks and kicking down doors and saving lives, right? So
that's what you're looking forward to this year, is getting back into the flames, I guess.
You betcha. Yeah, that's me. That's what I do. Yeah.
Mike, thank you so much for talking with us. It's incredible.
Thanks very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.